Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me say, I want to hear you all say Aiboan, Aiboan. So that's wishing you a long life. So let us wish you the other long life. Consulate General, my former colleague, and one of my very close friends, Sandeep Samarasinha. Consul General for New Zealand, Ms. Bella Katz. Jason Vaughan, thank you for those lovely words and thank you for being here. Chairman, Tourism Promotion Bureau Chalaka Gajabahu. Dilan Aryavansa, one of the very good ambassadors of Sri Lanka and running the Sri Lankan Airlines business as well in Australia, New Zealand, New York, Caribbean, you name it, he has many GSAs for Sri Lankan. He's doing something right. And also distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, it gives me great pleasure to be here. When I saw that A to Z video, if you really looked at it, it says we are open, and once you come to Sri Lanka, you come back for more. Sri Lanka is an addiction. It's an addiction about hospitality. It's about the culture. It's about the heritage. It's about the culinary feast that we have in Sri Lanka. It's all you name it. Sri Lanka is a beautiful, like Chalaka says, is all in one capsule. I need to first explain why we are here. We first went to Perth, then went to Sydney, and then came to Melbourne. Melbourne being our strongest stronghold. There's many Sri Lankans, and I always believe they can act as ambassadors for Sri Lanka. Because you meet so many Australians, please talk about the beauty of our country and start getting people to come into Sri Lanka. Why I say this is, when I figured that Bali was being a bit naughty to the Australians, I thought we had an opening. So we realized, we spoke to our boards, the promotional bureau, and it said Australia should be in our list of promotional countries. So we're looking at new markets. Sri Lanka is predominantly, was a European favorite hotspot destination, especially for the UK and France and Germany and the rest of the European countries. But we realized your winter season, I would like to call Sri Lanka a 365 day of the season because it doesn't have a season. But it's somewhat low season for us is your winter season. That's your season. So we thought this really works well if we analyze the analytical side of it, that Australians do travel to Thailand, do travel to Bali, do travel to Maldives, but they have been doing the same for over and over and over and over years of time. But look at Sri Lanka. It's just a place where there's something for everyone who's going to travel. So what we wanted to understand was we're supposed to come back in October in a big way. We want to get a massive ballroom. We want to get a B2B session for the whole day. We are about 30 to 40 DMCs. Representatives will be here, meet the agents. You can start the business up. And I'm also the lands minister, and I can offer you some land, whoever wants to invest in Sri Lanka. If you really see the south, you hardly find any spot that locals can buy because already most of the foreigners have already invested on villas, and villas is something that is really big in Sri Lanka. And private villas, where you go to Arugamba, you go to Mirissa, where the surfing areas, it's all taken over by a lot of foreign investors. But we still have your lands, and we can help you over to build the beautiful country back in now. So let's say in October, if we are to come back, I wanted my tourism officials to understand what kind of a package we should offer the Australians. Hence why we're here. And we wanted to have these 3 networking sessions in Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne, just to get your input on how we should get Sri Lanka branded in Australia, because we're going for a massive global campaign. We are going to have our thematic campaign coming in October, where we'll have a check-in campaign which starts in August. We will launch it. We want to launch and go big in Australia. We want us to be present in Australia. So how do we do that? Is why we're here, just to figure it out, get the product right, and then go back, get to our drawing boards and come up in October in a big bang. So you can sell for your next winter season. Sri Lanka should be a destination. One thing I realized with my trip, and today is the last day, and tomorrow morning I head out to Sri Lanka, what I realized was the air seat capacity has to be increased. Sri Lankan is a bit too expensive, unless Dylan wants to put his own money and reduce it. I don't know how they can do that. But Sri Lankan, we are trying, the CG is also trying his best to get another slot in to operate 2 daily flights from Sri Lanka and from Melbourne. So that will actually open things up. And most of the travelers on the Sri Lankan Airlines is VFR travelers visiting family and relatives. We need tourists coming in, at least 25%, so we need to get the seating done at Sri Lankan Airlines, which we are at the moment doing. Let me just tell you something about Sri Lanka. How resilient we are is the best example is that A to Z video. This is all within last July to last June, how we converted Sri Lanka. When I took oaths, as you know, I was, many of my Sri Lankan friends will know, I was an opposition member. There's a huge revolution that happened in Sri Lanka. It was the darkest period of our history. But I took a personal challenge and I came out of an opposition to the government when the president, who was the only member in parliament, ended up being the president, to support him because we were in a crisis. My first job when I took oaths, houses were getting burned, politicians were getting hammered. I was one of the people who started a revolution, but I went into the government. It was a very risky time. I had to take a small car, hide myself and took oaths. But I'm very proud to say where we are today is just, if you really go back within 365 days, it's an unbelievable experience of how we converted. My first job, first day when I went into office, I got all these chairmen. I had a very good group of people who came and supported me voluntarily. Sanat Jayasuri is our brand ambassador. He has not taken a cent from us for promoting Sri Lanka. He's a cricketer. Cricketers are very expensive these days, but he did not. And unfortunately, he was supposed to be here. His mother fell ill. She's 80 years old, so he had to rush back home. So I hope all's well with him, and we've been in touch. And he wanted me to mention that was the reason, but he will be back. He will be doing some promotional stuff together with the Australians. Today, Sri Lanka is back on track. IMF has bailed us out, and we have done our debt restructuring. In September, Sri Lanka will be formally taken out of the bankrupt status and to a normal running country. So we can be proud. As I said, when we took over the first day in office, what we had to do was send the last tourists out to find fuel for them to get to the airport. All the airlines stopped flying into Sri Lanka, and it was a horrific time to promote Sri Lanka. What we did first, we did the right things. We straight went into India. We asked them, there's a high middle class population. We got people like MasterCard, Visa to sponsor us. They did videos for us, promotional stuff, and all of that worked well for us. And Indians, I have to thank them because they're done marvelously well over the period of time, and they're the #1 arrivals for Sri Lanka at the moment, and they accumulate up to about 35% of our tourists. And mind you, Indians nowadays really spend, and they're a good market to have. We have more than 82 flights connecting to India for a week, so there's a huge air seat capacity, so we can market it, and Sri Lankan Airlines have done wonders in getting them down. Then what we did was we wanted a campaign. We wanted to identify long-haul destinations are a bit tough these days. To check the tourism, what they do now is regional travel, mostly regional travel, because long-haul destinations are a bit costly because of the airline costs. But what I see for Australia is there's so much connection that we can make. There's so much of products we can offer. I was talking to a friend of mine last night over dinner, and I was saying there's so much of Sri Lankans living here. I even met a few companies today and I asked them, why not you start, most of our digital platforms, now the OTT platforms are what's very popular. I said to start, I can't still figure out a name for this, but you can send your mother or Sri Lanka. It's domestic tourism for us as well. Why not send them from a rural area where your parents are to Colombo, to Hilton, to Shangri-La, to Radisson, to ITC, any of these branded hotels for 3-4 days as a gift to your parents. The car will come in, give them some flowers, pick them up, take to this 5-star luxury. I myself studied in Melbourne for a while, so I remember whenever I go to see a nice place, I remember of my parents, and I want them to experience it the same way that I did. So there's so much of things that innovatively we can do. These boys, the guy down. The concierge was a Sri Lankan boy. And I'm sure he will love to send his parents. Maximum $500 will be nothing for him. For a good getaway for your parents for about a week in Sri Lanka. And simple stuff that you can do, and those are innovative things that we can actually start. What we also did was this influencer program. We did a massive influencer program from many other countries. We got them. We realized the value of the social media. That's where the trend sets in. And we've signed up even with Nas Daily. He's going to do 3 videos about Sri Lanka, why you should invest in Sri Lanka. Number 2 is waterfalls of Sri Lanka, and another video, I can't remember. He's doing 3 videos which on investment, waterfalls, and the craziest train ride. He's doing 3 videos which will minimum get us 50 million views. So these are things that we've done right. And starting from August, we're going to have a calendar event in Sri Lanka. In August, we want to do something similar to the Edinburgh tattoo event. Sri Lanka military is very strong. We have more than 400 brass bands, the Sri Lanka Navy, Air Force, Army, and police. So we're getting together all of them, and we're inviting few bands around from the world for the 3-day brass band concert that's happening in August. In October, we are branding Sri Lanka as a diving destination with addicts. Sri Lanka has more than 142 shipwrecks, and we have water. I always keep telling my Sri Lankan friends, how many of us do even swim? Very less. We're an island nation, and we want to brand Sri Lanka as this island nation. So this will happen. We're in a transformation. You go to Bali on the beach, it's happening, partying, everything. Sri Lanka has it, but we need to get it branded properly. So we are in the process of doing it. In October, we are going to brand Sri Lanka as a beach destination. That sun and fun experience, and the water sports, everything will be launched in there. Our scuba diving to the corals, amazing beaches we have, and we need to make use of it. So October will be completely on that. There's going to be a huge beach volleyball tournament, DJ carnivals, all happening. In November, we're going to showcase Sigiriya as a backdrop, and there's going to be a massive fashion show, international fashion show, led by the Colombo Fashion Week. Colombo Fashion Week is in the top 20 fashion, whatever. So they are in the top 20 of the fashion shows and organizations. So they're on the top 20. They are going to do an international massive event in November. December will start 1st February. So 1st December, it's going to be party time in Sri Lanka. All of the Sri Lankans who are here knows 31st night in Sri Lanka is crazy. And that whole, it leads up to that. There'll be so much of carnival, musical stuff happening. In January, we are having the Galle Literary Festival alongside the Jaipur Festival. We're doing it 1 week before, so anybody coming in can come for the Galle Literary Festival and then go to the Jaipur Literary Festival as well. And this will work very well. It's not going to be just in Galle Fort. We're going to have in every town, Hikkaduwa up to Mirissa, every town will have an event. There'll be musical shows, there'll be a reggae show, there'll be a rock concert, all of that happening. In January 26, Andrea Brasholi is performing at Colombo Port City. So there's so much of events. There are ballet events happening, international ballet events happening in Sri Lanka, so on and so forth. Every month, Sri Lanka will have a program. So this is what we wanted to share. This is what we wanted to get out in the world. And we wanted new markets. So Australia is one of the first new markets we came into. We want to go into Japan because Sri Lanka wellness is in the next level right now. Our meditation, our yoga retreats, the positivity, the sun, what you need is all in Sri Lanka. It's a blessed nation. It's a blessed island. So anyone comes there will come back for more. That's what we realize. 33% of our travelers are repeaters. So we're doing a Pico Trail. We will show you that video as the last video. In this, European Union and USA funded this project. It's a 21-day project. They start from the Hantana Hills. They go up to Alla. Then it's all walking, and you see the scenic beauty, the culture, the tea plantation. We're converting line rooms where the Indian estate workers worked in Sri Lanka as bed hotels, like homestay experience. For the high end, there are the villas, because all these tea estates have bungalows. And those bungalows now we're trying to get investors to invest, and that culture will. So what we also realize, it's 21 days. Nobody's going to walk 21 days. So this is the whole strategy behind it was They do 4 days. They do 4 days in the beach, or they go to the cultural triangle, or they go to Kandy or Aurelia. But 4 days on the mountain, then they come back, let's say 10 days average, an Australian would go out, they'll do only stage one. When they come into this cold weather, when they're on the computer, dark, gloomy day, they'll keep thinking about Sri Lanka and wanted to go and do the next session. So we wanted them to keep coming back. So that is our whole attitude towards promoting Sri Lanka. Well, one of the other things that we have done right is we got the domestic air transportation back up and running in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has beautiful locations. We have the best golf courses. If you see, the Royal Golf Club in Colombo is one of the best golf courses in the world. When you go up to Nurelia, there's the Nurelia Golf Course. We have one in Shangri-La in Hambantota, all 18-hole golf courses, and in Trinco, China Bay. We wanted them to get to A to B very fast. So we realized we got the seaplanes, we got the other smaller aircrafts flying into all these places, scheduled, started from this month, July. So I'm very, very happy and very pleased to see, and we have few helicopter operators to travel. Borden Barrett, the famous all-black rugby player, came with his wife and spent the honeymoon in Sri Lanka. So there's so much of connection that we are making. So sports tourism, medical tourism. I know dental is very expensive here. Sri Lanka is very, very good and relatively very, very cheap. These are things, there's so much of opportunity if you look at it. So one of the first things that we're trying to do also is to start a direct flight to Perth. Perth to Colombo will be only about 6 to 6.5 hours. And I mean, what better place than Sri Lanka to go for your next holiday? You want wildlife, wildlife will be there. So there's lots of opportunity for investment. We just got 2 companies from Dubai to do skydiving schools in Sri Lanka and hot air ballooning from Cappadocia in Turkey. So they have put 3 balloons, hot air balloons, and they're going to put more than 10 in the coming months. And one of the attractions that I wanted to say was we wanted to have an aerial view of the wildlife. So in Yala, we will start a hot air ballooning with a champagne breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. So these are things that where you add the value addition, because average spender in Sri Lanka right now is $200. That's not going to do good. But I don't want the Australians to mix up or price us as a cheap destination. It should be very unique. Sri Lanka should be a unique destination. We don't want to be an alternative to Bangkok or Bali, because Sri Lanka is unique on its own. And I want to keep it that way, because if you do keep bringing it down, I mean, I know to Bali, you can go for $1,000 or $1,200 for a 7-day trip. Sri Lanka, the problem is the hotels won't be that expensive. But if you want to add up the value addition, you can go up on the chain. But it's the airline. The air ticket cost is what's eating us up. So we will go back. We will fight hard on this. We'll try to get more airlines. I met Qantas. We went and met the top people at Qantas. We met the Jetstar. So we're trying to, Qantas is having a problem on their own with only having 55 odd aircrafts operating on the international sector, not the domestic sector. So they are finding it really hard to allocate another flight. But at least a seasonal flight is what we're requesting. Sri Lankan is also on a restructuring process. I hope it goes well for Sri Lanka, because it's one of the IMF conditions. So I love the Sri Lankan brand. I really, when I get onto my flight, it's actually home. It's just 10 hours, it wouldn't even feel it for me, because you feel that whole home atmosphere and the Sri Lankan warmth and the hospitality is all in there. So hopefully Sri Lankan survives in a best restructuring manner, but the country is on the right track and the right progress. So ideal time once again to get a small plot of land or invest in Sri Lanka, because that's the next hotspot destination. If you see all the numbers, all the bookings coming in, it's coming thick and fast. And 2024, if you see the forecast, right now our best year was in 2018. It was 2.3 million tourists. Last year, with all the controversies after we took over, within 5 months, we were able to bring over 500,000, and it ended up on a total of 719,000 tourists only. But we have already covered the 719,000 within the 6.5 months that we have passed the last for 2023. Our forecast is by 2030 we have 4 million tourists, and I know we can get there. Rooms are coming up, as I said. Hilton Conrad brand is opening up in Yala. Yala, they sell average at $700. All the hotels, Wild Coast, we have Uga, China Huts, all other hotels go on average that way. So we have the high end to support it. We are developing 3 marinas, marina in Colombo, Galle, and Trinco. That's another area where we can really improve. The private charters keep coming in to Sri Lanka. We have given them landing free in Sri Lanka for private charters who are coming in and bringing the crowds. So there's so much one-on-one we can discuss. We have a fantastic consular general who understands it, who has a passion. He himself in Sri Lanka had a, what's it called, Millennium Elephant Foundation. So we have lots of volunteers go in there, lots of kids go there. They stay for about a month with the elephants, so he understands how to support a tourist and how to build it up. So I've been there, I've seen it, and it's an amazing place. There's so much of youngsters. They have to be on a list to come in there and get an entire experience of bathing an elephant, feeding an elephant, baby elephants, all of that. So it's not chained. It's not animal cruelty. It's a foundation that has been led to look after elephants. So it's good to understand. It's good to work with a person who understands tourism, and that's what I was trying to explain. So I would not go any further. We have a small Q&A session. I would love you to give us some suggestions or to tell us what we should do right when coming into Australia in October, how we should brand Sri Lanka. We're going under a massive campaign around the world, and that will start in October as well. So we needed to get this right, and Australian market to be right, and understand what your request is also. And to all my Sri Lankan friends who are here, please start acting as Sri Lankan ambassadors. Try promoting Sri Lanka, because the access that you all have to your workplaces, access you have to your friends at your sporting places is immense. Even in the universities, there could be so many programs that we can organize. Sri Lankans and Australians have one thing in common. It's our body with sports. Any sport we would like to do. Australians are the same, whether it's volleyball, netball, cricket. The passion always remains the same. Once again, Sri Lanka is a really resilient nation. I always say, when we are put in a final with Australia, we definitely beat them. We might get beaten 5-0 when we are back at home, but Sri Lankans, when it comes to the crunch, performs well. And I'm quite certain that in tourism also, we'll do the same. And we need your support. And as always, keep loving Sri Lanka, and the Sri Lankans love you back. Thank you so much, and enjoy the night. Thank you.